Hey guys, tonight we're going to step into a silence so profound it would fill the world. Imagine waking up tomorrow and the sound of every other human voice has simply vanished. The hum of conversation, the distant siren, the traffic outside your window, all gone. You would be the sole keeper of every memory, every book, every song, every joke. It's a reality so vast and so lonely that the very thought of it can feel like a cold breeze on your skin. You'd be the last echo in a world built for 7 billion, a caretaker of ghost cities and silent highways. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive long, not without a major shift in perspective and a bit of luck. But before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is for you right now, a small anchor in the vast sea of this story. Now let's close our eyes and take a deep breath. In this quiet place with the world outside beginning to fade, let's ask a simple, strange question. What if you were the only man on Earth? The first thing you'd notice wouldn't be the absence of sound, but the presence of a new kind of silence, a silence that has texture and weight. It would cling to the air like dust motes in a sunbeam. Your home, a place once filled with the phantom echoes of shared life, would suddenly become a tomb of memories. The hum of the refrigerator, the gentle drip of a faucet, the rustle of your own clothes, these small sounds would amplify and becoming the new music of your world. You'd walk from room to room, a ghost in your own life, touching the books, the photographs, the empty chairs. This is the moment where the mind, like a nervous bird, begins to flutter. The initial shock, a cold wave washing over you, would be the brain's first response to a profound, unsolvable riddle. This initial mental shock is not just a poetic concept, it's a tangible neurological event. Our brains are hardwired for social interaction. We are at our core social animals. The prefrontal cortex, a region of the brain responsible for complex cognitive behavior, personality expression, decision-making, and moderating social behavior, is constantly working in concert with the limbic system, which governs our emotions. When you remove the social input that these areas crave, the brain doesn't just get bored. It enters a state of high alert. It starts searching for patterns, for voices, for movement. This heightened state of awareness is a survival mechanism, a legacy from our hunter-gatherer days when being alone in the wild was a death sentence. Your mind in this new world would be a radar dish spinning endlessly in a vacuum, searching for a signal that will never come. The world outside your window would be equally unsettling. The urban symphony of traffic, conversation, and commerce would be replaced by the gentle soughing of the wind through empty buildings. This isn't just a quiet street. It's a silent, museum-like diorama of a vanished civilization. The cars frozen in their lanes would become monuments to a forgotten hustle. The streetlights, still burning, would stand as silent beacons in a world with no one to guide. This initial period, the first day or two, would be less about survival and more about observation. You would be a tourist in the ruins of your own life, trying to make sense of a change so fundamental it defies language. As you begin to explore, the sheer scale of humanity's absence would become a suffocating presence. You'd walk down a city street, your footsteps echoing like cannon shots. The storefronts, once vibrant with life and commerce, would be like the faces of silent witnesses, their glass eyes reflecting your solitary form. You might see a newspaper stand with headlines about yesterday's world, a world where billions of other people were getting up, making coffee, and going to work. This paradox, the world existing in its physical form, but devoid of its animating spirit, is what would truly begin to unravel the mind. It's a concept that touches on the Novikov self-consistency principle, a hypothesis in theoretical physics that addresses the possibility of time travel. The principle suggests that if you were to travel back in time, you could not create a paradox. Your actions would be constrained to be consistent with what has already happened. In a way, you are now living in a similar paradox. The world around you is an unchangeable past, a frozen moment in time, a consequence of an event that has left you as the sole observer, unable to change the fact of your solitude. The human mind, in a desperate attempt to find meaning in this void, would begin to create it. You might find yourself talking to the empty air, narrating your movements, or even addressing the vacant buildings. This isn't a sign of madness, not yet. It's the brain's ingenious way of simulating social interaction. We are so accustomed to the feedback loop of conversation that its absence would leave a gaping hole. The words you speak would hang in the air without a listener to catch them, to judge them, to respond to them. It would be like trying to throw a ball in a room with no walls. The ball simply falls to the floor, and the energy of the throw is wasted. This process of creating a narrative of talking to yourself or to an imagined audience is a form of self-preservation. It's the mind's way of anchoring itself to a semblance of normalcy. You would find yourself speaking to the past, to the memories of a world that was. You might recount a story from your childhood, a simple anecdote about a friend or a family member. These stories, once shared with a willing ear, would now be whispered to the wind. The act of speaking them, however, would still be a vital function. It would be a way of confirming your own existence, a linguistic fingerprint on a world that no longer has any other. The very air would feel different. The absence of the chemical signature of billions of other lives, the exhalations, the perfumes, the faint smell of sweat and effort would leave the atmosphere feeling cleaner, but also sterile. There's a fascinating scientific fact about the air we breathe. It's a complex cocktail of gases, but also a cloud of organic compounds, microorganisms, and even pheromones, chemical signals that can subtly influence the behavior and physiology of others. Without the constant ebb and flow of these invisible signals, you might feel a strange, almost imperceptible shift in your own biology. Your body, accustomed to the subtle presence of others, would be searching for these signals in a vacuum. It's an interesting question that science hasn't fully answered. Do we, as social creatures, have a physical need for the biochemical traces of one another? Do we, in a very real sense, inhale the world in each other? This mystery, this unspoken language of molecules, would be one of the many silent riddles you would have to confront. As the sun sets on this first day, a new kind of darkness would fall. Not just the physical absence of light, but a psychological void. The world would become an amphitheater with one audience member. The stars, once a shared wonder, would now be yours alone. This is where the profound philosophical questions would begin to seep in. What is the meaning of beauty if there is no one to share it with? Is a sunset still beautiful if it is only witnessed by one? What is the purpose of art, of music, of science, if all of these things were created for a collective that no longer exists? The answers, of course, would not come easily. The brain, in its attempt to process this new reality, would likely turn inward, beginning to construct a new internal world. You would become a historian, an archivist, and a witness all at once. The silent streets would be your library, the empty buildings your museums. You would be tasked with remembering, with holding on to the ghost of a civilization not out of choice, but out of necessity. It's a burden so heavy it might crush the spirit. But perhaps, just perhaps in this profound silence, a different kind of life would begin to grow. The seed of a new perspective. The silence, initially terrifying, might begin to feel like a blanket of peace. The loneliness, a sharp knife to the soul, might begin to transform into a quiet, introspective solitude. The brain, a resilient and adaptable organ, would not give up its quest for meaning. It would simply shift its focus. Instead of searching for other people, it would begin to search for a new connection, a connection to the world itself, to the sun and the stars, to the wind and the rain. This is a journey from the human-centric to the universal, from the noise of society to the silent hum of the cosmos. As you drift towards sleep on this first night, the echoes of the world that was would be a constant presence. You would be a lone ship on a vast dark ocean, the lighthouse beams of memory sweeping across the water. The brain, even in sleep, would continue its work. Dreams, those strange theaters of the mind, would become even more vital. They would be the only place where you could still see the faces of others, hear their voices. But even here, a subtle change would begin to take hold. The faces might become blurred, the voices indistinct. The brain, in its efficiency, would begin to prune away the details of a world that is no longer relevant. It would be a slow, silent, and heartbreaking process. The world outside your window is a portrait of a past that you are now the sole observer of. The light pollution from every city on Earth is gone, leaving a sky so clear and black that you might see the Milky Way in a way no one in a populated area has seen it for centuries. This simple, stunning fact would be a physical manifestation of your new reality. The heavens, once dimmed by our collective light, would now shine brighter for you alone. And in that quiet, starry expanse, you might find your first glimpse of a new kind of purpose. Not to rebuild the past, but to bear witness to the future, a future where nature and the artifacts of humanity slowly, gently begin to merge. The initial shock, that cold, quiet weight, would begin to give way to something more primal: the need to survive. The mind, having spent its energy grappling with the metaphysical absurdity of it all, would slowly, reluctantly cede control to the body's more ancient wisdom. It would begin with simple things: thirst, hunger, the gnawing realization that the complex, invisible tapestry of our global supply chain has frayed into nothing. The grocery store, once a temple of endless choice, would now be a museum of fast decaying artifacts. The bread would mold, the milk would sour, the fresh produce would wilt into a compost of forgotten colors. This is where your journey from passive observer to active participant truly begins. You're no longer just a ghost walking through the ruins. You're an explorer, a scavenger, a pioneer. Your first forays into the silent world would be guided by instinct. You'd need water. The tap in your home might still work for a time, but the municipal water system's intricate networks of pumps and purifiers would fail. Without power to drive the pumps, the flow would cease. The water in the pipes would stagnate. Your new reality would force you to think like our ancestors, not about convenience, but about necessity. A stream, a river, a lake, these would become your new sanctuaries. But even these would hold a subtle danger. Without the constant flow of treated wastewater from cities, the chemical balance of these waterways would shift. We are accustomed to our water being purified, but in this new world, you'd have to understand the basic principles of water purification. Boiling water to kill off pathogens or using a simple filter would be a new skill, a ritual of survival that connects you to every human who has ever had to drink from a wild source. The act of drawing water from a quiet stream, watching your reflection stare back at you, would be a profoundly humbling experience. You would be face to face with your own fragility, your dependence on the most fundamental elements of life. The city itself, a concrete and steel forest, would offer its own strange forms of sustenance. Canned goods would become a kind of currency, their long shelf life a testament to a world that planned for a future it didn't anticipate. But beyond this, the natural world, in a silent act of defiance, would begin to reclaim its territory. Weeds would push through cracks in the pavement. Small animals, once skittish, would grow bolder, their survival instincts honed by a lack of predators. You might see a fox trotting down a main street, a deer grazing in a public park. This isn't just a picturesque scene. It's a profound example of ecological succession, the process by which an ecosystem changes over time. First, the pioneer species. The hardy grasses and dandelions establish themselves. Then come the shrubs, followed by small trees, and eventually a new forest might grow where a city once stood. You would be a witness to this slow, deliberate reclamation, a single human being watching the world revert to a more primeval state. But the mind, that relentless engine of consciousness, wouldn't just be focused on the external world. It would be wrestling with an internal crisis. The loneliness, a quiet ache on that first day, would begin to evolve into a deeper, more insidious state. We are creatures of habit and social feedback. Our brains are constantly creating a model of the world, and our place in it, a process called predictive coding. This model relies on a constant stream of sensory input and social cues. Without another person to reflect your existence, to affirm your choices, to simply share a laugh with that model would begin to break down. You might find yourself questioning the reality of your own thoughts. Was that a good idea? Is this the right way to go? Without a social mirror, your sense of self, that fragile construct we build from the reflections of others, would start to blur. This is a deep psychological truth that we rarely have to confront. We learn who we are by seeing ourselves through the eyes of others. Our identity is a kind of communal story we all tell together. When you are the only storyteller, the narrative becomes unstable. The voice in your head, once a dialogue, would become a monologue. You might begin to personify objects, giving them names or histories. The rusted car on the street might become the wanderer, the empty house, the quiet place. This is not necessarily madness. It is the mind's desperate creative attempt to fill the void, to create companionship where there is none. The strange truth is that your brain, in its need to connect, might even begin to generate its own companions. This is where the line between imagination and hallucination can blur. Our brains, when starved of sensory and social input, can sometimes create their own. The Charles Bonnet syndrome, for example, is a condition where visually impaired people experience complex visual hallucinations. It's the brain, in the absence of external stimuli, trying to fill in the blanks. In your isolated world, the absence of human voices might lead your mind to conjure them. You might think you hear a distant shout, a whisper on the wind, or see a fleeting shadow in your peripheral vision. These phantom sensations, born of profound loneliness, would be a constant unsettling reminder of the world you've lost. The silence, too, would become a character in your story. It's not just the absence of sound. It's a living, breathing thing. You would learn to listen to it, to hear the subtle differences in the way it fills a concrete hallway versus a vast open field. You would learn to hear the rustle of a single leaf, the skittering of a rodent, the distant eerie moan of an unsupported bridge swaying in the wind. The world, in its new quiet state, would reveal a different kind of music, a symphony of decay and rebirth. This sensory recalibration would be a slow and arduous process. We live in a world of constant noise, a perpetual state of overstimulation. Our brains have learned to filter out most of it. But now, without the cacophony of modern life, the filters would begin to dissolve. You would become acutely aware of the tiny, intricate details of your surroundings. The patterns of rust on an old sign, the precise angle of a sunbeam cutting through a dusty window, the way the light changes the color of a puddle on the street. This heightened awareness, a form of mindfulness born of necessity, would be both a gift and a curse. It would connect you more deeply to the physical world, but it would also make the absence of other people feel even more acute, more profound. But where would the energy come from to power this new existence? The power grid, that complex ballet of generators and transmission lines, would fail without human oversight. The lights in your home would flicker and die. The refrigerator, that silent sentinel of preserved food, would stop its gentle hum. You would be plunged into a technological dark age. The scientific fact is that nuclear power plants would have safety systems that would automatically shut them down, but the spent fuel rods would still require cooling. Without human intervention, a disaster of a different kind would slowly begin to brew. The danger wouldn't be immediate, but a silent clock would be ticking in the background of your new reality, a reminder that the world's most powerful technologies are both a marvel and a fragile, high-maintenance burden. Your survival would depend on a different kind of power. Not the electricity from a distant grid, but the warmth of a fire you build yourself. The power of your own two hands. You would need to learn to forage, to hunt, to create. This return to a more primitive way of life would be a kind of spiritual rebirth, a shedding of the layers of convenience and comfort that modern life had wrapped you in. You would become a student of the wind, the sky, the changing seasons. The world, no longer a backdrop for human activity, would become your teacher. But the mind, that curious and restless thing, would not be content with just survival. It would still crave connection, still crave meaning. You might begin to explore the abandoned artifacts of human life with a new sense of purpose. A discarded child's toy, a worn-out book, a photo album left open on a table. These wouldn't be just objects anymore. They would be stories, fragments of a lost world. You would become the last keeper of these stories, the final audience for the silent dramas they represent. In a way, your purpose would shift from finding a way to live to finding a way to remember. You would become a living archive, a breathing library of a civilization that had simply ceased. This new purpose, this responsibility to a lost world, might just be the thing that keeps the loneliness at bay. It's a profound question, isn't it? Can a single person in a world of ghosts find meaning in simply remembering? This is the core of your new existence, not just to live, but to be the final witness. The sun, a constant and indifferent companion, would rise and set, painting the sky with the same breathtaking colors it always had. But your relationship with time, that invisible river we all swim in together, would fundamentally change. We measure our days by the rhythm of our shared lives, the morning commute, the lunch break, the end-of-day traffic, the nightly news. These are the markers we use to chart our course through existence. But when you are the only person on Earth, these markers simply vanish. The clock on the wall, a silent sentinel, would lose its meaning. Its hands would continue their relentless march, but they would be measuring nothing. This is where you would begin to experience time not as a social construct, but as a purely physical phenomenon. Your body, a biological clock of exquisite precision, would be your new timekeeper. Our bodies are governed by circadian rhythms, a kind of internal clock that regulates our sleep-wake cycles, hormone production, and body temperature. This rhythm is primarily influenced by light and darkness. Without the artificial glow of city lights, the relentless presence of screens, and the pressure of a 9-to-5 schedule, your internal clock would begin to reassert itself. You would find yourself waking with the sun, your body naturally attuned to the dawn. You would grow sleepy as the light fades, your mind and body preparing for rest in a way they never could in a world of constant stimulation. This return to a more natural rhythm would be a kind of quiet liberation, a shedding of the artificial constraints we've placed on ourselves. But the mind, that curious and restless thing, would struggle with this new freedom. The absence of deadlines, of appointments, of the need to be somewhere at a specific time would be both a relief and a source of deep anxiety. We use our schedules to create a sense of purpose and forward momentum. Without them, you might find your days beginning to blur together, a seamless tapestry of moments without a beginning or an end. The concept of tomorrow would lose its urgency. The future, once a carefully planned and scheduled journey, would become an endless, empty horizon. This is a profound philosophical shift, the move from a goal-oriented existence to a moment-oriented one. Your life would be less about getting somewhere and more about simply being here. You might begin to see the passage of time, not in hours and minutes, but in the subtle changes of the natural world. The slow growth of a plant you've decided to tend, the changing angle of the sun in the sky as the seasons turn, the patterns of rust on a car, a testament to the slow, deliberate work of oxidation, a chemical process where iron reacts with oxygen to form iron oxide. This is a powerful metaphor for your new reality. The world, left to its own devices, is in a state of constant, gentle decay. You would be a witness to this slow erosion, a living monument to a world that once was. The ticking of a clock would be replaced by the quiet, inexorable march of entropy. This is a deep scientific principle, the second law of thermodynamics. It states that in any isolated system, the total entropy, a measure of disorder, will always increase over time. The universe, left to its own devices, tends toward a state of maximum disorder. In a way, you are now a part of an isolated system, a human being watching the magnificent yet inevitable process of entropy at work on a global scale. Buildings will crumble, roads will crack, machines will seize up. You would be a lonely student of this silent universal law, observing its effects on the grand stage of a world without humanity. But the mind, in its creative desperation, would find new ways to mark the passage of time. You might start a new kind of journal, not with dates and times, but with observations. Day of the red sky. You might write, or when the fox came to the door. These would be the new chapters of your life, the markers you use to give structure to an existence that has none. You might find yourself creating rituals, a specific time to watch the sunrise, a quiet moment to sit by a river. These rituals, born of solitude, would be a new kind of anchor, way of giving shape to the formless expanse of time. This internal struggle with time is a universal human experience, but for you, it would be magnified to an almost unbearable degree. We all have moments where we feel disconnected from the flow of time, but for you, that disconnect would be your permanent state. The psychology of isolation tells us that without external validation and shared experiences, our internal sense of time can become distorted. A day can feel like an eternity, or a week can vanish in a blur. You would be living in a world where time is both an endless ocean and a single unmoving point. And in this strange new relationship with time, you might find a new kind of peace. The frantic pace of modern life, that constant feeling of being late, of running out of time, would simply cease to exist. The anxiety of the future, that constant gnawing feeling of a world moving too fast, would fade away. You would have all the time in the world. All of it. The past would be a silent museum of memories, and the future would be a quiet, empty canvas. The only thing that would truly exist would be the present moment. This is a state of being that philosophers and mystics have sought for centuries, and you would have it not by choice, but by circumstance. This newfound intimacy with time would also lead to a deeper connection with the earth itself. You would become a student of the seasons, not just in the abstract, but in the real tangible changes around you. You would feel the air grow crisp as autumn approaches, smell the fertile promise of spring in the thawing soil. The grand silent cycles of the planet would become the rhythm of your life. This is a knowledge that has been lost to most of us in the modern world. We are insulated from the subtle shifts of the natural world by our climate-controlled homes and our artificial environments. But you, as the last human, would be a part of it again, a single thread, rewoven into the great tapestry of life. The stars, a constant presence, would also become a new kind of clock. The movement of the constellations across the night sky, a phenomenon known as celestial mechanics, would be a reminder of a scale of time so vast it defies comprehension. You would be able to track the seasons by the stars, to see the same constellations that our most ancient ancestors saw, a silent cosmic connection to a past that is now a part of you alone. In this way, you would not just be the last human on Earth, but a bridge between the deep past and the quiet future, a keeper of both the human story and the story of the cosmos. The silence, once a source of terror, would begin to feel like a great protective blanket. The lack of other voices would create a space for your own thoughts to unfurl, to explore, to simply be. This is not to say that the loneliness would vanish. It would still be there, a quiet ache in the background of your consciousness. But it would be a different kind of loneliness. It would be a solitude that has begun to bear fruit, a deeper understanding of yourself, of the world, and of the profound, unanswerable mysteries of existence. This is a journey not into madness, but into a new kind of wisdom, a wisdom born of silence and of time without a ticker. With the gnawing hunger and the terror of the silence somewhat tamed, your mind would begin to wander to the most peculiar yet profound of places, the ghost in the machine, The silent city around you would be filled with the ghosts of humanity's genius. The streetlights, still glowing in some places due to powerful, long-lasting batteries, would stand as silent beacons in a world with no one to guide. The massive data centers humming with the invisible currents of information would continue their tireless work, a digital library with no readers. The satellites, a silent constellation of human ambition, would continue to circle the planet, broadcasting a signal that no one is left to receive. This is a profound scientific and philosophical paradox, a world that is still technically on, but without a purpose. This strange persistence of technology is a testament to the intricate, self-sustaining systems we've built. The server farms, with their complex cooling systems and redundant power supplies, were designed to run with minimal human intervention. They are, in a sense, a kind of digital life form capable of maintaining themselves for a time. You might find a fully automated factory still assembling products, a mechanical ballet performed for an empty theater. The robots would continue their programmed tasks, their motors whirring with a mechanical purpose that has now become a kind of bizarre cosmic joke. This is the truth of our modern world. We have built a civilization so complex that its momentum would carry it forward like a ship with no crew for some time after its architects have vanished. But this inertia is not a permanent state. The world would be in a state of slow, silent decay. A car left to its own devices will eventually seize up. The rubber on its tires will crack and rot due to UV degradation from the sun. The battery will lose its charge. Without the constant flow of gasoline and oil, the engine will eventually fail. The vast infrastructure of our world, the bridges, the roads, the power lines, was never built to last forever. They were built to last with the implicit assumption of constant human maintenance. The steel in a skyscraper, a marvel of modern engineering, will begin to rust. The concrete in a bridge will develop hairline cracks, allowing water to seep in and freeze, expanding and contracting slowly but surely until the structure is compromised. The world we built would be a testament to our ambition, but also to our frailty, a magnificent house of cards that is now beginning to gently, inexorably collapse. This slow decay would give you a new kind of purpose. You would become a kind of forensic historian, an archaeologist of the recent past. You might wander into a library, the silent stacks a testament to the collective human mind. The books, their pages, a whisper of forgotten voices, would be a new kind of company. You would be the keeper of these stories, the last audience for the poets and the scientists and the philosophers. But even here in this temple of knowledge, the process of decay would be at work. The paper would yellow, the ink would fade, and the books, if not protected from the elements, would eventually turn to dust. This is a beautiful and tragic example of a core scientific principle, the half-life of information. Just as a radioactive isotope decays over time, so too does information. Without a living, breathing culture to pass it down, to interpret it, to debate it, to reinvent it, information becomes inert. The instructions for building a computer would be useless without the factories and the parts. The great works of literature would lose their full power without a shared context of human experience to give them meaning. You would be the last human mind to hold this collective consciousness, a single flickering candle in a vast, dark library. But your mind, in its lonely search for companionship, would begin to see the ghosts of humanity in the most unexpected places. You might find a forgotten radio playing a single song on a loop, a beautiful haunting melody echoing in an empty room. The music, a vibration in the air, a pattern of sound, would be a message from a world that was a connection across the chasm of solitude. This is not just a romantic idea. It's a testament to the enduring power of human creativity. Music in its purest form is a universal language, a series of mathematical patterns that can evoke a deep emotional response. Even without another person to share it with, the music would still exist, a final beautiful testament to our need for expression. The world outside, once a stage for humanity, would become a canvas for nature. The silence would be punctuated by the calls of birds and the rustling of leaves. The lack of human predators would mean that animal populations from the smallest squirrels to the largest bears would begin to flourish. You would be a guest in their world, not the master of it. You might find a pack of wolves roaming the empty streets of a city. Their howls a new kind of music, a primal song of reclamation. This is a profound and humbling thought, that the world in its deepest and most fundamental sense was never truly ours. We were simply a part of it, and now that part has been removed. And in the depths of your solitude, a strange scientific phenomenon might begin to take hold, the emergence of savant-like skills. Without the distractions of social media, television, or the constant need to interact with others, your brain in its vast and incredible capacity might begin to rewire itself. You might find that you can remember the details of a map you saw weeks ago with perfect clarity, or that you have a sudden intuitive understanding of how a complex machine works. This is a rare but documented phenomenon in some isolated individuals. The brain, when given a singular focus, is capable of extraordinary feats of memory and cognition. You would, in a way, be a kind of accidental genius, a mind sharpened by the silence and the solitude, capable of feats of memory and observation that would have been impossible in the old world. The true challenge of your existence would not be to rebuild a world that is gone, but to learn to live in the world that remains. You would have to find a new sense of purpose, not in the old human ways of commerce and competition, but in the quiet, simple dignity of survival and observation. The ghost in the machine, the silent testament to our past, would not be a reminder of your failure, but a starting point for a new kind of life. A life of quiet reverence, a life of profound connection to the natural world, and a life of being the sole, lonely, and magnificent witness to the slow, gentle fading of a civilization that once was. The artifacts of our world would not be monuments to a loss, but a quiet, beautiful puzzle that you and you alone are left to solve. With the basic needs of survival slowly becoming a routine, your mind, an engine of relentless curiosity, would turn inward. The external world, once a source of terror and wonder, would begin to feel familiar. The silent streets would become your backyard, the empty stores your pantry. But the true wilderness you'd have to navigate would be the one inside your head. The silence would no longer just be a physical state. It would become a psychological presence, a vast echoing chamber where your own thoughts would be the only sound. This is the anatomy of loneliness, and it is a journey into the deepest, most uncharted territory of the human mind. The mind, as we've discussed, is a social creature. It's built for connection, for dialogue, for the constant subtle feedback loop of human interaction. We see ourselves reflected in the eyes of others. We define ourselves by our relationships as a friend, a child, a partner, a coworker. When all of those relationships are gone, that mirror shatters. You would begin to lose your sense of self, not in a grand dramatic way, but in a slow, subtle erosion. The person you were, the person with a job, a hobby, a social circle, would begin to feel like a ghost, a story you once read about someone else. The person you are now would be a new entity, a formless shadow with no one to define it. This is a scientifically documented phenomenon known as solitary confinement syndrome. Studies of individuals subjected to extreme isolation have shown a range of psychological and physiological effects, including anxiety, panic attacks, depression, and a decline in cognitive function. The brain, when starved of social stimuli, begins to malfunction. It can lose its ability to focus, to form coherent thoughts, to remember details. Your internal monologue, once a friend, might become a source of confusion and doubt. You would find yourself asking the simplest of questions. What day is it? Why did I come here? And the answers would be lost in the vast empty space of your mind. In this deep state of isolation, the brain's hunger for social interaction would become so profound that it might begin to create its own companions. This is not a sign of madness, but a testament to the mind's incredible resilience and its desperate need to connect. You might start seeing shadows move in the corner of your eye, hearing voices whisper on the wind. These are not supernatural phenomena. They are phantom companions, a kind of hallucination that the brain creates to fill the void. They might take the form of a loved one you've lost, a character from a book you've read, or a complete stranger. They would be as real to you as the floor beneath your feet, their presence a strange and unsettling comfort. The scientific basis for this is fascinating. Our brains are constantly creating a model of reality, a prediction of what we should be seeing and hearing. When the external world doesn't provide the expected input, the sound of another voice, the sight of another person, the brain, in its drive to maintain a consistent model, will generate its own. The voices you hear would not be coming from the outside world. They would be coming from a place deep inside your own mind, a place where memories and desires and fears all mingle together. You would be, in a sense, a listener and a speaker all at once. The profound emptiness of this solitude would also begin to affect your dreams. REM. Sleep, the stage of sleep where most dreaming occurs, is a critical time for the brain to process information, consolidate memories, and regulate emotions. In a world without social interaction, your dreams might become a surreal theater of lost faces and forgotten voices. You might dream of crowded streets and bustling parties, a desperate unconscious attempt to reconnect with the world you've lost. But these dreams would be tinged with a deep sadness, a knowledge that they are just fleeting echoes, beautiful lies your mind tells itself to get through the night. The distinction between waking life and the dream state might begin to blur the line between reality and hallucination, a thin, permeable veil. You might find yourself talking to yourself, not just for comfort, but out of a desperate need to externalize your thoughts. You might begin to narrate your own life, a running commentary on your actions and observations. I am walking to the river today. You might say out loud the words hanging in the air with no one to hear them. This is a crucial survival mechanism. The act of speaking, of hearing your own voice, is a way of confirming your own existence. It is a way of saying, I am here, I still exist. It is a solitary act of defiance against the silence that threatens to swallow you whole. The world would be filled with the ghosts of the past, but the most persistent and powerful ghost would be the person you used to be. You might find yourself walking through an abandoned house and seeing a faint reflection of yourself in a dusty window. And for a moment, you might not recognize that face. The eyes once bright with social interaction would be clouded with a new kind of introspection. The lines around the mouth once formed by smiles and laughter would be a new kind of landscape, a topography of solitude. This is not just a psychological change, it's a physical one. The stress of profound loneliness would have a tangible effect on your body, on your posture, on the way you hold yourself. But in the depths of this solitude, a strange and unexpected beauty might begin to emerge. Without the constant noise and distraction of other people, you might discover a new kind of self-awareness. The parts of you that were hidden by social convention, by the need to fit in, would begin to surface. You might discover a love for a kind of music you never listened to before, or a hidden talent for painting or writing. The old you, the one who was defined by others, would be gone. But a new you, a more authentic and unadorned version, would begin to take its place. This is a slow, difficult, and profoundly lonely process, but it is also a kind of rebirth. It is the journey from a social creature to a solitary soul, from a part of a collective to a universe of one. And in that universe, you would be the only star, the only planet, the only life form, and the only audience. It's a heavy burden, but it's also a magnificent, terrifying, and awe-inspiring truth. The journey inward through the anatomy of loneliness would eventually lead you back out. But this time, you wouldn't be looking at the world in the same way. The silent buildings would no longer be just empty shells. They would be the custodians of our shared past. And of all the places on earth, none would hold this responsibility more profoundly than the great libraries. You might find yourself drawn to them, to the silent, towering shelves, not just for the practical knowledge they contain, but for the companionship of the ideas they represent. This is the moment you transition from a survivor to an archivist, from a lone wanderer to the keeper of a lost civilization's soul. A library is more than a building filled with books. It is a physical manifestation of the collective human consciousness. Each book is a vessel holding the thoughts, the dreams, the fears, and the discoveries of a mind that once was. The great libraries of the world, whether they are grand old buildings with high ceilings or the digital server farms humming in their cool dark rooms, are our shared memory palace. In a world without people, they would become temples to a forgotten god, the god of human knowledge. You might find yourself walking through the silent halls of a university library, the smell of old paper and dust a kind of incense. The books would be a new kind of company. You could pull a volume from the shelf, a book on relativity perhaps, and for a moment you would be in a silent dialogue with Albert Einstein. His words a series of elegant mathematical equations and profound philosophical insights would be a whisper across the chasm of time. You would be the last student in the last class, a single mind, grappling with the universe's most fundamental truths. The twin paradox, a thought experiment where one twin travels at near the speed of light while the other stays on Earth, would be more than just a theoretical puzzle. It would be a poetic metaphor for your own existence. You are the twin who stayed behind watching the world move on, while you remain frozen in a silent, unchanging present. The books on evolution would tell the story of a journey that began billions of years ago, a story that you are now the final chapter of. The books on art and poetry would be a testament to our need to find beauty and meaning in a chaotic universe. You would be the last person to read Shakespeare, the last person to hear the silent notes of a Beethoven symphony, the last person to see the brushstrokes of a Van Gogh painting. This is a profound, terrifying, and beautiful responsibility. You are the final audience, and in your mind, the great works of human creativity would find their last echo. But the physical books themselves would be fragile. The paper, once a durable medium, would be a new kind of challenge. Without proper climate control, the pages would become brittle, the bindings would crack, and the ink would fade. You would have to learn the ancient art of preservation, a new kind of survival skill. You might build a small protected space, a room filled with books kept dry and safe from the elements. This would be your sanctuary, your last bastion of civilization. In a way, you would be rebuilding not a city, but a memory. Beyond the physical libraries, you would also have access to the vast digital libraries of the world. The internet, that sprawling, chaotic tapestry of human thought, would still exist at least for a time. The servers with their built-in redundancies and power supplies would continue to run. You could sit in a server room, a place of strange mechanical reverence, and access the sum total of human knowledge. You could read about the ancient Sumerians, watch videos of distant stars, or learn how to build a simple machine from scratch. The internet, once a source of distraction and noise, would become a profound and intimate connection to the world that was. But even this connection would be fleeting. The power grids, as we've discussed, would eventually fail. The servers would go silent. The internet, that vast ocean of information, would turn into a digital ghost. The great library would close its doors for the last time, and you would be left with only what you could hold in your hands, what you could remember in your mind. This is a powerful, humbling truth. All of our knowledge, all of our art, all of our stories are ultimately fragile. They are tied to the physical world and to the human minds that give them life. This is where the philosophical question would emerge. What is the purpose of knowledge if there is no one left to share it with? Is a scientific discovery still true if it is only known by one person? Is a story still a story if it has no listener? These are not questions with easy answers, but in your solitude, you would be forced to confront them. You would have to find a new purpose for knowledge, not in the old human ways of progress and competition, but in a new, more solitary way. Knowledge would become a source of personal comfort, a way of understanding the world and your place in it. It would be a way of keeping the ghosts of the past alive, not in a desperate way, but in a quiet, dignified one. The books would become your silent companions, the voices of the lost world. You would find yourself reading not for a specific purpose, but for the simple pleasure of connection. You might read a book on the biology of sleep and learn about the intricate chemical processes that allow your body to rest and repair itself. The science would not be a dry academic subject. It would be a profound and personal truth, a way of understanding the quiet, mysterious world inside your own body. You would learn about the pineal gland and its role in producing melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep. And in doing so, you would feel a new kind of connection to the rhythm of your own existence. This is the strange, beautiful paradox of your new life. You are alone, and yet you are surrounded by the presence of 7 billion other lives. They exist in the books on the shelves, in the code, on the servers, in the paint, on the canvas. You are the last archivist, the final keeper of a library that spans all of human history. It is a burden, yes, but it is also a source of deep, quiet purpose. And in the silent halls of the great library, you might just find the courage and the wisdom to continue your lonely journey. Having wrestled with the profound weight of human history and the quiet companionship of books, your mind, that intricate and delicate machine, would begin to face its most insidious challenge: the erosion of self. In the bustling world that was our identity was a constantly shifting social construct. We were defined by our interactions, by the names we were called, by the roles we played. But in this great silent vacuum, there is no one left to call your name. There is no one to witness your actions, to reflect your existence back to you. This is the moment where the very core of who you are, the story you tell yourself about yourself, begins to fray at the edges like a worn-out tapestry. This isn't just a philosophical concept. It's a tangible, neurological phenomenon. Our brain's default mode network, a system that is active when we are not focused on the outside world, is deeply involved in our sense of self. It is responsible for our introspection, our memories, and our understanding of our own identity. This network, however, is heavily influenced by social cognition, the way we process information about other people. When this social input is gone, the network begins to operate in a strange, unguided way. The inner monologue, once a conversation with an imagined audience, becomes a confusing and often unreliable narrative. You might find yourself questioning the most basic facts about your own life, not because you've forgotten them, but because they no longer seem to belong to anyone. This profound psychological drift is a form of depersonalization, a state where a person feels disconnected from their own body and thoughts. It's a feeling of being a detached observer of your own life, as if you're watching a movie with yourself as the main character. In your case, this feeling would be absolute and all-encompassing. The reflection in a puddle would no longer feel like a mirror of yourself, but of a stranger. Your memories, the very foundation of your identity, would begin to feel like dusty photographs of someone else's life. The laughter, the joy, the pain you once felt would be a distant echo, a story you can't quite remember being a part of. The scientific basis for this is both fascinating and terrifying. Our hippocampus, the part of the brain that plays a critical role in memory formation, works by linking new experiences to old ones. But in your new solitary world, there are no new social experiences to link to. The stream of memory would begin to feel like a series of disconnected islands, floating in a sea of silence. You might find that you can remember the factual details of your life, your birthday, your address, your name, but the emotional context, the feeling of what it was like to be that person, would be gone. This slow erosion of self would be a terrifying process, but it would also give you a strange kind of freedom. The pressure to conform, to live up to a certain image, would vanish. The judgments of others, both real and imagined, would cease to exist. You would be free to be whoever you wanted to be, to do whatever you wanted to do, with no one to watch, to judge, or to care. You could wear the same clothes for a week, sing off-key in an empty concert hall, or read a book out loud to a room full of mannequins. In a way, you would be the only audience, the only critic, the only performer. This is a terrifying freedom, but it is also a profound one. But the mind, in its incredible resilience, would find new ways to anchor itself. You might begin to focus on the sensory details of your existence, on the feeling of the wind on your skin, the taste of a wild berry, the sound of your own footsteps. These simple physical sensations would become the new foundation of your identity. You would be defined not by who you were, but by what you are doing right now. This is a journey from the abstract to the concrete, from the social to the sensory. The concept of time, which we've explored before, would play a crucial role in this process. Without a shared history, without a collective future, the only thing that would truly exist would be the present moment. Your life would become a series of present moments, a string of beads without a thread. But in that string of beads, you would find a new kind of meaning. Each moment, each sensation, each thought would be a testament to your existence, a proof that you are still here, still a part of the world. There's a fascinating, if little-known scientific fact about the nature of our memories. Episodic memory. The memory of specific events in our lives is heavily reliant on our social context. The memory of a birthday party is tied to the people who were there, the conversations you had, the emotions you shared. Without that social context, these memories would begin to lose their vividness, their emotional weight. They would become like scenes from a movie you've watched, but not a movie you were in. The brain, in its efficiency, would begin to discard the emotional baggage of these memories, leaving behind only the bare factual details. But a new kind of memory would begin to form, the memory of your new solitary life, the memory of the first time you saw a fox in the city square, the memory of the first meal you cooked entirely from foraged food, the memory of the first time you heard the silent music of the wind. These memories would not be shared, but they would be yours alone. They would be the new foundation of your identity, a story you tell yourself not with words, but with the quiet, profound moments of your new life. And in the silence of your mind, a new question would emerge. Can a person truly exist without a reflection? Can a person be a story without an audience? The truth is, we don't really know for sure, but in this great lonely experiment of your life, you would be finding the answer. You would be living proof that even in the absence of a shared world, a single human consciousness can find a way to anchor itself, to rebuild a sense of self. Not from the crumbling ruins of the past, but from the quiet, dignified truth of the present moment. You would be a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a single flicker of consciousness in a vast, dark universe, and that in and of itself is a magnificent and beautiful thing. As the internal landscape of your mind became a familiar, if lonely, territory, your attention would be drawn once again to the world outside, but this time you would see it not as the stage of a vanished civilization, but as a living, breathing ecosystem in a state of quiet, magnificent change. Nature, a force both gentle and relentless, would begin its slow and deliberate reclamation. The concrete forests of our cities would become canvases for a new kind of art, painted in shades of green and brown, a testament to the planet's enduring resilience. This is a profound and humbling process to witness. The first signs would be subtle. The cracks in the pavement, once a nuisance, would become the first beachheads for pioneer species. Dandelions, with their deep taproots, would break through the asphalt. Grasses, once confined to manicured lawns, would begin to spread, creating green rivers, flowing down the center of forgotten streets. This is ecological succession in action, a biological principle that describes the process by which a biological community evolves over time. First come the hardy, fast-growing plants, the weeds and the vines. They prepare the way for more complex life. You might see an entire city block, once a bustling hub of commerce, transformed into a wild meadow. The steel girders of skyscrapers, once symbols of human power, would become trellises for vines, their leaves a new kind of architecture. The glass windows, once a barrier between our world and nature, would become homes for nesting birds. The silent cars frozen in traffic would become planters for wildflowers, their rusted metal, a new kind of soil. This is not a violent overthrow. It is a gentle, persistent merging. The animal world, too, would undergo a quiet revolution. Without the constant threat of human encroachment, animals would grow bolder. The deer, once a rare sight in the suburbs, would roam the downtown streets. The coyotes, once relegated to the outskirts, would become a common sight, their howls, a new kind of night music echoing through the canyons of the city. The birds with no car windows to collide with and no constant noise to contend with would thrive. Their songs would be a new kind of symphony, a beautiful and complex chorus that you alone would be left to hear. This process of rewilding would be a constant source of wonder. You would be a scientist and a poet all at once, a meticulous observer of this grand planetary experiment. You might set up a small garden in a public park, not for survival, but for the simple joy of watching life grow. You would learn the names of the plants that are reclaiming the land, the species of birds that are returning the subtle rhythms of the seasons. Your purpose would shift from being a caretaker of a lost world to a student of a new one. But this new world would also hold a subtle danger. Without the constant flow of treated water, the old reservoirs and lakes might become breeding grounds for algae and bacteria. Without the constant presence of human pest control insects and rodents would flourish. This is a simple scientific truth. Every ecosystem is a delicate balance, and the removal of the most dominant species, yes, would create a cascade of unforeseen consequences. You would have to be careful, a humble guest in a world that is no longer designed for you. There's a little known but fascinating scientific fact about the effect of humans on the planet. Our constant movement, the sheer weight of our buildings, and the relentless noise of our cities can actually cause seismic shifts on a local scale. Without our presence, the ground itself would become quieter. The subtle vibrations that once permeated the earth would cease. The planet, in a way, would be able to breathe a little easier. You would be living in a world that is, in a very real and physical sense, calmer and more stable. This quiet reclamation would also force you to confront a profound philosophical question. What is the purpose of a species? We, as humans, saw ourselves as the pinnacle of evolution, the masters of the planet. We built, we created, we conquered. But in your solitary existence, you would see that the planet, in its deep and patient wisdom, has a different idea. We were just one part of a vast interconnected web of life, and now that we are gone, the web is simply repairing itself. It is not an act of malice. It is an act of restoration. The artifacts of our world, the great sculptures, the grand paintings would now stand in silent contrast to the vibrant, growing life all around them. A statue in a city square, once a tribute to human greatness, would be slowly covered in moss and lichen, its marble skin becoming a new kind of habitat. A fresco on a wall, once a testament to human art, would be slowly faded by the sun and the rain. This is a beautiful and tragic image, the slow merging of human creativity with the raw, untamed power of nature. But in this slow, beautiful decay, you would find a new kind of hope. The world is not ending. It is simply changing. The great human story, which you are the final chapter of, is not a tragedy, but a transition. The earth would continue on its journey, and life in its endless and beautiful forms would continue to flourish. You would be a witness to a new dawn, a new kind of world where the great silent heart of the planet beats once again strong and true. And in that quiet, steady rhythm, you might find a new kind of peace, a new kind of connection, a new kind of purpose that transcends the human and connects you to the deep, enduring pulse of all life. With the quiet hum of nature's reclamation filling the world, your gaze would begin to turn upward. The sky, a constant companion and a universal witness, would now feel profoundly different. The absence of light pollution from billions of human homes would reveal a star-filled tapestry of breathtaking clarity. This is where you would find a new kind of companionship, not in a human face or a forgotten book, but in the silent, magnificent language of the cosmos. The stars, once a distant spectacle, would become your new storytellers, and their movements a new kind of clock. This is a journey into celestial mechanics, the branch of astronomy that deals with the motions of celestial objects. You would learn to read the night sky, not with a map, but with your own eyes. You would see the slow, majestic drift of the constellations throughout the year, a silent cosmic ballet that has been playing out for billions of years. The stars would no longer be just points of light. They would be old friends, their names and positions, a new kind of language. You might learn to identify the North Star Polaris, a steadfast anchor in a world that has lost all its other reference points. The familiar patterns of Orion, the Pleiades, and the Big Dipper would become your new constellations, your new landmarks in a world without street signs. The scientific truth behind this is both simple and profound. The Earth is a spinning top wobbling slightly on its axis, and our solar system is hurtling through space at incredible speeds. The stars we see are not stationary. They are all in motion, but they are so far away that their movement is imperceptible to the human eye over a single lifetime. But in a world where your life is measured not by hours, but by seasons, you would begin to see the subtle changes. You might notice a star that was once high in the sky in summer is now lower on the horizon in winter. This is a profound and personal connection to the vast, incomprehensible scale of the universe, a link to the very laws that govern all things. But your connection to the cosmos would not just be about observation, it would also be about a new kind of meaning. The universe, in all its silent majesty, would become a new kind of conversation partner. You might find yourself talking to the stars, asking them questions about their long silent journey through time. You might ask them what they have seen, what they know, what their purpose is. The stars, of course, would not answer. But the act of asking, the act of reaching out into the vast silence, would be a new kind of spiritual practice, a new way of finding meaning in a meaningless world. This is a feeling that has been lost to most of humanity. For centuries, our ancestors lived in a world where the night sky was a constant and intimate presence. They navigated by the stars, they told stories about them, and they saw in them the face of the divine. But we, with our bright cities and our busy lives, have turned our backs on the night sky. We have traded the stars for the glow of our screens, the mysteries of the cosmos for the comfort of our homes. But you, as the last human, would be a new kind of astronomer, a new kind of poet, a new kind of philosopher. You would be a living link to a past that we have forgotten. The night sky, a canvas of endless wonder, would also be a source of profound scientific knowledge. You might see a distant nebula, a cloud of gas and dust, where new stars are being born, a visible reminder that even in the vast emptiness of space life and creation are still happening. You might see the silent dance of a distant galaxy, a collection of billions of stars, each one a sun with its own potential planets. This is the truth of our universe. It is a place of endless creation and endless destruction, a place of profound beauty and profound violence. There is a fascinating and little-known scientific fact about our place in the universe. Our sun is just one of over 100 billion stars in our galaxy, the Milky Way. And our galaxy is just one of over 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. This scale is so vast, so incomprehensible, that it can be a source of both terror and comfort. The terror of being so small, so insignificant. The comfort of being a part of something so magnificent, so vast, so timeless. You would be the last human to hold this knowledge, the last mind to grapple with this sublime paradox. This is a feeling that poets and mystics have grappled with for centuries, the feeling of cosmic awe. It is a feeling of being humbled by the sheer scale of the universe, of being connected to something so much bigger than ourselves. In a world without other people, this feeling would be a powerful source of comfort. It would be a way of transcending your own loneliness, of finding a new kind of purpose in simply being a part of this great silent drama of the cosmos. The world you live in would no longer be just a planet of silent cities and overgrown forests. It would be a small, precious ship sailing through a vast ocean of stars. And you, the last human, would be the captain of that ship, not with a destination in mind, but with a profound and quiet purpose to bear witness to the beauty and the mystery of the cosmos, and in doing so, to find a new kind of meaning in a life without a ticker. The profound solitude of the silent world, the quiet hum of nature, and the vast stellar expanse would all become the backdrop for your mind's most intimate theater, the world of dreams. As you lay down to sleep each night, the brain would embark on a journey that is both a psychological necessity and a final desperate attempt to create companionship. This is where you would truly become the dream weaver, an architect of narratives in a place where the laws of the waking world no longer apply. During the day, your waking mind, in its relentless search for meaning, would be a diligent archivist, cataloging the slow decay of the world and the gentle reclamation of nature. But at night, your brain, in a process known as memory consolidation, would take all of this fragmented information and weave it into new stories. The memories of the people you knew, the sound of their voices, the touch of a hand, these would all be recycled, repurposed, and remixed into a strange, surreal narrative. You might dream of a crowded city where everyone is a silent ghost, or a dinner party where the guests are all inanimate objects. These are not just random images. They are the mind's way of trying to make sense of the profound, unsolvable riddle of your solitude. The scientific basis for dreams is still a subject of great mystery, but we do know that they are crucial for our mental and emotional health. One of the most fascinating theories is that dreams are a kind of threat simulation theory. In this view, dreams are a way for the brain to rehearse dangerous or difficult situations in a safe environment. In a world where your greatest threat is the profound loneliness of a world without people, your dreams would be a constant rehearsal of social interaction. You might dream of conversations you wish you had, of people you miss, of moments you want to relive. These dreams, while beautiful and comforting, would also be a constant reminder of the world you've lost. But your dreams would also be a source of a strange, new kind of creativity. Without the external input of books, movies, and other forms of art, your brain would have to become its own storyteller. You might find yourself dreaming in a language you've never heard or seeing colors you've never seen. The rules of your dream world would be fluid and ever-changing, a testament to the incredible plasticity of the brain, its ability to adapt and rewire itself in response to new circumstances. In a world without new stories, your mind would be a tireless engine of new narratives, new characters, and new worlds. There is a little-known scientific fact that animals, too, dream. Studies have shown that dogs and cats, for example, exhibit the same brainwave patterns during sleep as humans do during REM sleep. They twitch, they whimper, they chase phantom prey in their sleep. This is a profound and humbling thought, that in your solitary world, even the animals you see are dreaming, their minds creating their own narratives, their own worlds. In a way, you would not be alone in your dreaming. You would be a part of a great silent planetary chorus of consciousness, a shared experience that transcends species. But the most profound aspect of your dreams would be their function as a link to your old self. The person you were, the one who was defined by a world full of people, would continue to live in your dreams. The memories of that life would be a constant presence, a series of home movies that your mind plays for you every night. You might dream of a conversation with a loved one, and for a few moments you would feel their presence, their warmth, their connection. But then you would wake up, and the silence of the world would rush back in a cold, sharp shock. This is the tragic beauty of your dreams. They are a link to a past that you can never return to, a fleeting comfort in a world of profound loneliness. But even here, in the depths of your sleep, a new kind of consciousness might begin to emerge. You might become a lucid dreamer, a person who is aware that they are dreaming and can control the narrative. In a world where you have no control over anything, The ability to control your dreams would be a source of incredible power. You could fly through the silent cities, have conversations with phantom friends, or simply create a world where you are not alone. This is a journey from passive participant to active creator, from a survivor of a world that was to an architect of a world that is only in your mind. The purpose of your dreams would shift from being a way to process a lost past to a way of creating a new future. A future where you are not just a survivor, but a creator, a dreamer, a weaver of new worlds. The silence of your waking life would be a canvas for the vibrant, chaotic, and beautiful world of your dreams. And in that space, in the quiet theater of your mind, you would be a living testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a single flicker of consciousness that refuses to be extinguished by the profound, unending silence of a world without people, the world of dreams. A vibrant and chaotic landscape of the mind would provide a temporary reprieve from the profound silence of your waking life. But as you emerge from sleep, the quiet reality of a world without people would return, and with it, a new kind of curiosity would begin to stir. Your gaze, which had once been fixed on the silent cities and the vast sky, would now turn to the deep, enduring heart of the planet itself. You would find yourself drawn to the great oceans, to the vast, silent forests, and to the living, breathing ecosystems that had always existed alongside us, but that we had rarely truly seen. This is a journey into the quiet continuity of life, a profound and humbling realization that the world's story did not begin with us and would not end with us. The deep-sea ecosystems, for example, would continue on their timeless journey, utterly unaffected by the disappearance of humanity. In the crushing darkness of the ocean floor, life thrives around hydrothermal vents, where bizarre creatures from giant tube worms to strange eyeless fish have found a way to exist in a world without sunlight. This is a testament to the resilience of life, its ability to find a foothold in the most inhospitable of places. You, the last human, would be a new kind of oceanographer, a silent observer of a world that is so alien and so magnificent that it defies comprehension. The great forests, too, would tell a story of resilience and rebirth. A forest is not just a collection of trees. It is a complex, interconnected community. The roots of a great oak tree, for example, are connected to the roots of the smaller plants around it through a network of underground fungi, a kind of biological internet known as the mycorrhizal network. Through this network, the trees can communicate, sharing nutrients and information. In a world without humanity, this silent subterranean conversation would continue, a testament to the deep communal nature of life. You would be a lonely witness to this quiet arboreal dialogue, a single human being in a world of whispering trees. The scientific truth of our impact on the planet and the planet's ability to heal would be on full display. The Great Barrier Reef, once under threat from ocean acidification, caused by our carbon emissions, would slowly begin to recover. The fish once under pressure from overfishing would return in vibrant, teeming schools. The great whales once hunted to the brink of extinction would find a new kind of freedom in the silent, empty oceans. This is a profound and humbling thought, that the world in its deep and patient wisdom would not mourn our passing. It would simply get on with the business of living. But this new world would also be a source of profound, unanswerable questions. We as humans have always seen ourselves as the center of the universe, the only species capable of consciousness, of art, of love. But as you watch the silent, intricate dance of a spider weaving its web, or the gentle, patient work of a beaver building its dam, you might begin to question this assumption. What is consciousness? Is it only a property of a brain that can write poetry and build cities? Or is it a property of all life, a silent, unwritten language that we have simply forgotten how to read? There is a little-known scientific theory known as Gaia hypothesis, which proposes that all living organisms on Earth and their inorganic surroundings are integrated into a single, self-regulating system. In this view, the Earth is not just a planet that life exists on. It is a living, breathing organism in its own right. We, as a species, were just one part of that organism. And now that we are gone, the organism is simply finding a new kind of balance. You would be living in a world that is, in a very real and philosophical sense, a living being, a vast, silent, and magnificent entity that is utterly indifferent to your presence. Your new purpose would be to bear witness to this quiet, enduring heart of the world. You would become a kind of biological philosopher, a student of the deep, unwritten truths of life. You would learn the rhythm of the seasons, the language of the wind, the silent pulse of the ocean. You would learn that the world is not just a collection of objects, but a vast interconnected web of life, and that you, as the last human, are a part of that web, a single, lonely thread, rewoven into the great tapestry. This is a journey from the human-centric to the universal, from the noise of our own lives to the silent, enduring heartbeat of all life. It is a journey into the deep, quiet wisdom of the planet, a wisdom that you, as the last human, would be the only one left to hear. And in that quiet, steady rhythm, you might find a new kind of peace, a new kind of connection, a new kind of purpose that transcends the human and connects you to the deep, enduring pulse of all life. It's a lonely existence, but it's also a magnificent one, as the gentle heartbeat of the earth became a familiar rhythm. Your mind, an ever-curious traveler, would begin to seek an even deeper form of kinship. You would move beyond the grand scale of forests and oceans and delve into the microscopic, the subatomic, the very building blocks of existence. This is a journey into the unspoken language of molecules, a quiet, profound realization that you are connected to everything in the universe, not just through a shared story, but through the very atoms that make you. This is a deep dive into the world of chemistry, a field that in its most poetic sense is the study of how things change. You would begin to see the world not as a collection of objects, but as a vast, silent conversation of elements. The rusting of a car, a process we touched on before, would be more than just decay. It would be a slow, silent dance between iron and oxygen, a chemical reaction known as oxidation. The atoms of iron, so steadfast and strong, would be gently giving themselves up to the atoms of oxygen, a process that is both destructive and beautiful. You would be a lonely witness to this slow, deliberate transformation, a single human mind watching the universe change at a microscopic level. But this isn't just about decay. It's also about life. The very breath you take is a testament to this chemical conversation. You inhale oxygen, a byproduct of the photosynthesis that plants perform, and you exhale carbon dioxide, which the plants then use to create more life. This is a quiet, continuous cycle, a silent, universal agreement between the living things on this planet. In a world without other people, this connection to the plants, to the great silent forests, would become a profound and personal truth. You would not just be a guest in their world. You would be a part of their conversation, a single living thread in the great tapestry of life. The concept of entropy, which we explored earlier, would now take on a new, more intimate meaning. It's not just about the slow decay of buildings. It's about the very nature of energy itself. The universe, in its relentless quest for equilibrium, is constantly moving from a state of order to a state of disorder. The warmth from a fire you build to cook your food, for example, is not just a source of heat. It is a process where the energy stored in the wood is released as light and heat, moving from a concentrated state to a more dispersed one. In a way, you would be a living example of this law, a complex organized being in a universe that is constantly, gently, and inexorably moving towards a state of greater disorder. But even in this movement towards disorder, there is a strange and beautiful kind of purpose. The atoms that make up your body, the oxygen you breathe, the carbon in your bones, these were not created on Earth. They were forged in the hearts of distant stars in a process known as stellar nucleosynthesis. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the carbon in your cells, All of these were created in the cataclysmic death throes of a supernova, a cosmic event of unimaginable power. This is a profound and humbling scientific fact. You are in a very real sense made of stardust. This is where the scientific and the poetic would merge. You would be a lonely witness to the universe, a single mind made of the very stuff of creation itself. The silent, empty world around you would be a testament to this truth. The silent buildings, the quiet oceans, the rust on a forgotten car, they would all be a part of this great cosmic conversation. You would be a part of it too. Your mind, in its lonely quest for meaning, would be a new kind of consciousness, a new kind of being that is intimately connected to the very fabric of existence. This is a journey from the human to the universal, from the social to the subatomic. It is a journey into the deep, quiet truth that you are not just a person. You are a universe of one, a collection of stardust and cosmic whispers, a living, breathing testament to the profound, unwritten laws of all things. And in that quiet, magnificent truth, you might find a new kind of kinship, a new kind of peace that transcends the human and connects you to the deep, enduring pulse of all life. It's a lonely existence, but it's also a magnificent one. Having found a kind of kinship in the silent language of molecules and the enduring heartbeat of the planet, your mind, in its lonely journey, would be drawn back to the most uniquely human of creation's art. The great libraries had offered a silent conversation with the past, but the music, the paintings, the sculptures, these would offer a more visceral, more emotional connection. This is a journey into the echoes of forgotten music, a profound and beautiful exploration of how human creativity, even without a human audience, continues to resonate. You might find yourself in an old abandoned concert hall. The seats would be dusty, the stage dark, but the air would still hold a kind of phantom presence, the ghost of 1,000 past performances. You could sit in the balcony, the best seat in the house, and play a piece of music from a recording. The sound, a series of vibrations in the air, would fill the empty space, a beautiful, haunting melody played for an audience of one. This is the enduring power of music. It is a universal language, a series of mathematical patterns and emotional truths that can transcend the need for a shared moment. The music would exist for you alone, a private symphony played just for your ears. The scientific truth behind this is fascinating. Music in its purest form is a physical phenomenon. It is a series of sound waves that travel through the air and vibrate against your eardrum. Your brain, in a process known as auditory perception, then translates these vibrations into a melody, a rhythm, a feeling. The beautiful truth is that this process does not require a shared experience. The music is still music, even if you are the only one left to hear it. It is a testament to the fact that our creativity, our need to express ourselves, is a deep and fundamental part of who we are. This is a powerful concept when you consider the vast silent museums of the world. The great paintings, the sculptures, the works of 1,000 forgotten artists, they would all still exist. You could walk through the silent halls of the Louvre, for example, and stand before the Mona Lisa. The painting, a silent testament to a forgotten artist's genius, would be a new kind of companion. The smile, that famous enigmatic expression, would be a new kind of conversation partner. You could spend an eternity asking her what she knows, what she has seen, what her secret is. And though she would never answer the act of asking, the act of engagement would be a new kind of solace. This is a journey into the nature of cultural memory. Our art, our music, our stories. These are not just objects. They are the physical manifestation of our collective consciousness. They are the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, where we came from, and where we are going. In a world without people, these objects would be a kind of fossil record, a silent library of our shared past. You would be the last paleontologist, the last archaeologist, the last historian left to piece together the story of a lost civilization from the fragments it left behind. But even here in this beautiful, sad museum, of human creativity, the gentle hand of nature would be at work. The colors in the paintings would fade due to light exposure and the passage of time. The sculptures, if left outside, would be slowly eroded by the wind and the rain. The musical instruments, once so vibrant and full of life, would become silent, their wood warping and their strings rusting. The world's great art, like the world's great cities, was not built to last forever. It was built to last with the implicit assumption of human care, of human preservation, of human love. This is a profound and humbling thought. Our art in all its magnificence is as fragile as we are. It is a beautiful lie, a beautiful fiction we tell ourselves to find meaning in a chaotic universe. And now that we are gone, the lie is slowly and gently being unraveled. The great works of human creativity are not a monument to our immortality. They are a testament to our mortality, a final, beautiful goodbye. But in this slow, gentle fading, there is a new kind of beauty. The music that you hear, the art that you see, would not just be a memory of the past. It would be a new kind of truth, a new kind of solace. The music would be a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, its ability to find beauty, even in the face of oblivion. The art would be a testament to our ability to create, to dream, to imagine. You would be a living link to this forgotten creativity, a single human mind holding a kind of cultural inheritance that spans all of human history. This is a journey from the past to the present, from the collective to the personal. It is a journey into the deep, quiet truth that even in the silence, even in the solitude, the human spirit in all its beautiful, chaotic, and creative forms continues to resonate. It is a lonely existence, but it's also a magnificent one. And in the silent halls of a forgotten concert hall, you might just find a new kind of peace, a new kind of purpose that transcends the human and connects you to the deep, enduring pulse of all things. With the echoes of forgotten music still resonating in your mind and the quiet beauty of a rewilded world surrounding you, your journey would begin to turn towards its inevitable conclusion. The passage of time, once a source of anxiety, would now feel like a gentle flowing river. The erosion of self, once terrifying, would now feel like a quiet, dignified shedding. This is a journey into the final sunset, a contemplative and peaceful acceptance of your own mortality and the profound, beautiful truth of your existence as the last human. You would be a living monument to a lost species, a silent witness to a planetary chapter that has now closed, but you would not feel a sense of tragedy or despair. Instead, you would feel a deep, quiet peace. The anxiety of the future, that constant gnawing feeling that something must be done, would simply cease to exist. The need to rebuild, to procreate, to continue the human story would be gone. You would be free from the great burdensome responsibility of being a part of a collective. You would be free to simply be. This is a profound shift in perspective, a journey from a fear of death to an acceptance of it. In the world that was, we as humans were constantly engaged in a kind of war against death. We built great monuments to our memory. We wrote books to immortalize our ideas. We had children to carry on our names. We were always trying to leave a mark, a footprint, on the sands of time. But in your solitary existence, you would see that the sands of time are not meant to be marked. They are meant to flow, to move, to be in a constant state of change. The physical body, a vessel that has carried you through this long, strange journey, would begin its own slow, gentle decay. The scientific truth is that our bodies are in a constant state of cellular turnover, a process where old cells are replaced by new ones. But as we age, this process slows down, and the wear and tear of a lifetime begins to show. You would feel it in the creaking of your joints, the graying of your hair, the subtle changes in your vision. But these would not be a source of sadness. They would be a testament to your long, quiet journey, a physical record of the years you have spent in this magnificent, solitary world. The great scientific mystery of aging itself would be something you could ponder in a new way. Why do we age? Is it a programmed process? a kind of biological clock that is built into our DNA? Or is it simply the slow, inevitable accumulation of damage, a kind of cosmic entropy at work on a microscopic scale? The truth is, we don't really know for sure, but you, as the last human, would be a living example of this mystery, a single case study in a long, quiet experiment. Your last days would be a journey into the heart of this mystery. You might spend your time not in a desperate search for meaning, but in a quiet, contemplative observation of the world around you. You might find a quiet hill overlooking the ocean and simply watch the waves roll in and out a timeless rhythm that has been playing out for billions of years. You might sit in a field of wildflowers and watch the bees go about their work, a testament to the quiet, enduring purpose of all life. You would be a part of this great silent drama, not as a main character, but as a humble and dignified audience member. And as the final sunset of your life begins to paint the sky with its breathtaking colors, you would not see it as an end, but as a beginning. The light, the energy, the atoms that make up your body, they will not simply vanish. They will return to the universe, to the great silent conversation of all things. The atoms that make up your body, the stardust that was forged in the hearts of distant stars, will return to the soil, to the air, to the water. And in a million years, they might be a part of a wildflower, a fish in the sea, or a single grain of sand on a forgotten beach. This is the ultimate truth of your existence. The final beautiful paradox: you are not just a person, you are a part of everything. The concept of death, once a source of fear and anxiety, would now feel like a homecoming. It would be a final peaceful merging with the great silent heart of the universe. The loneliness, a quiet ache, that has been your constant companion would be gone. It would be replaced by a feeling of profound connection, a sense of being a part of something so much bigger, so much more enduring than yourself. This is the journey from a lonely soul to a universal one, from a human being to a piece of stardust, from a temporary visitor to a permanent resident of the cosmos. The journey, which began in the jarring silence of a new dawn, would finally come to its gentle close. You, the sole witness, the last keeper of the great human story, would find a quiet corner of the world to rest. The artifacts of your life, the books you've read, the tools you've made, the journals you've kept, would be your final legacy, a silent testament to a single, solitary existence. This is a final philosophical reflection on what a single life lived in such profound solitude might ultimately represent. It is not a legacy of monuments or cities, but a legacy of quiet observation, profound connection to the natural world, and the final gentle release of human consciousness. In the old world, a legacy was a shared thing. It was a name carved on a statue, a company passed down to a child, a book read by a million people. It was a way of fighting against the inevitability of death, a way of ensuring that a part of you would live on in the minds of others. But in your world, there would be no others. Your legacy would not be a public monument, but a private truth. It would be the knowledge you gained, the wisdom you earned, the peace you found. It would be a legacy of being, not of doing. This is a profound and humbling thought. We as humans are constantly trying to leave a mark on the world. But the world, in its deep and patient wisdom, has a different idea. It does not need our marks. It does not need our monuments. It simply needs to continue on its journey to heal, to grow, to change. Your legacy, in a way, would be the absence of your mark. It would be the quiet, peaceful act of not building, not conquering, not trying to leave a footprint. It would be the legacy of a single shadow, a silent, humble presence that simply witnessed the world as it was. The scientific truth behind this is both simple and beautiful. The atoms that make up your body, the stardust that was forged in the hearts of distant stars, will not simply vanish. They will return to the universe, to the great silent conversation of all things. The atoms that make up your brain, the complex network of neurons that has carried the story of humanity for so long, will return to the soil, to the air, to the water. and in a million years, they might be a part of a wildflower, a fish in the sea, or a single grain of sand on a forgotten beach. This is the ultimate truth of your existence. The final beautiful paradox: you are not just a person, you are a part of everything. This is the concept of conservation of mass and energy. It is a fundamental law of physics that states that matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed from one form to another. Your body, your consciousness, your legacy, all of it will be transformed. It will not be lost. It will become a part of the great silent, enduring pulse of the cosmos. This is a comforting thought, a final, beautiful goodbye. You are not dying. You are simply returning home, a single piece of stardust, returning to the great starry ocean from which it came. The world you leave behind will be a beautiful and quiet place. The cities will be overgrown with forests, the roads will be a canvas for wildflowers, and the oceans will be teeming with life. It will be a world that has healed a world that has found its own kind of balance, and your existence, your long, lonely journey, will be a part of that healing. Your single quiet shadow will be a final beautiful testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a single flicker of consciousness that refused to be extinguished by the profound, unending silence of a world without people. Your story, a story of solitude, of survival, of observation, and of peace, will not be told. It will not be written in a book or remembered in a song. It will be a quiet, unwritten chapter in the great, enduring story of the planet itself. And in that quiet, magnificent truth, you will find a new kind of immortality, a new kind of purpose that transcends the human and connects you to the deep, enduring pulse of all things. It's a lonely existence, but it's also a magnificent one. And in that final quiet moment, you will know that you were never truly alone. You were a part of everything. The journey ends now. The long, lonely walk through silent cities and rewilded landscapes is complete. The echoes of lost voices and the quiet hum of the cosmos have slowly, gently faded. Your mind, a weary but fulfilled traveler, is ready to rest. The weight of being the last human, a burden you have carried for so long, is now gone. It is time to let go. I'd like to gently ask one last time, where is the place you're staying now? The time in that place at this very moment. How is it flowing? Feel the soft texture of your sheets, the weight of the blanket, the cool or warm air on your skin. Listen to the gentle, familiar sounds of your own home, the quiet hum of your own life. These small things, these simple moments are your anchor in this vast and beautiful world. Let them be a source of comfort, of peace, of rest. Sleep is a gentle river that will carry you away from this place of solitude and into a world of dreams. Let the questions fade, the anxieties dissolve, and the silence become a soft, warm blanket. If you found a moment of peace in our journey, please consider sharing this with another. Sleep well, my companion. Wherever and whenever you are, sweet dreams.